Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, and welcome to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. I'm Andrew, flying solo today, and you guys know I love playing Ranger. I've been playing her for a good while now, and today I'm asking my fellow Ranger players the question, what's in your quiver? Hello everyone, thanks for joining me again. So today the focus is on Ranger, and specifically kind of a deck building concept episode. So before we get started, and especially relevant with Unlimited basically hitting the shelves now or within the next couple weeks, I get all of my sealed product from Gongai Games. You can find them at www.gongai.com, and additionally you can use code Commando10 at checkout for an additional 10% off your purchase at checkout, which is pretty sweet. Helps with the cost savings. They also have free shipping on over 25, so you don't need to worry about that. Furthermore, get my singles from Fab Foundry. You can find them at the link provided. Furthermore, if you use the link below, that is an affiliate link. Actually, you help support the channel buying your singles, because I get a small kickback, which helps keep things going here. So please check them out over there. So really, when it comes down to Ranger, you can't play all the arrows, right? There's just not enough room in your deck. Not all of them really fit the same strategy. So what I just kind of wanted to do today was go through the arrows, talk about which ones I like, which ones I don't, and do keep in mind that you can swap some in and out depending on your personal preference, your personal strategy. So before we get into this, it's worth taking a second to stop and just kind of talk about really baseline value in this game. So fundamentally, from most of the cards we've seen, and granted things get better as the rarity goes up, we grant you that, but there seems to be a fundamental cost curve of 1 for 3, right? Well, 1 plus card from hand, right, for 3. Meaning that if you have and that's usually on the one pitch, right, the red cards. So a good example for that, of course, is the attack, react, raise, or reflex. It's got the 1 for 3. We see 1 for 3 on a lot of Dorinthea's stuff. And then, of course, you have 3 defense as kind of your standard, right? 3 defense. This way, 4 is the magic number, is because 4 usually requires at least a card. Well, it'll require more than just a card from hand, right? So that's why 4 is kind of the magic number. So going into Azalea and the Ranger arrows specifically, you have a higher cost curve. The basic cost curve for Ranger is 0 for 4 if you look at the majority of her cards, or a 1 for 5, right? So it's a 1 for 5 or a 0 for 4, and that's kind of that. And the reason for that is pretty clear. We'll get back to Azalea in a second, but if you look at Death Dealer, or if you even look at Redliner, what they do is it takes an extra action to get that card into your arsenal to play it. So fundamentally, at least what it appears is that what all this has done is, in order to, because you have to go through the extra action or the extra effort of getting it in there, and you can't just play cards from hand, you get a little something out of it. So that in of itself has been kind of, for me, what's drawn me to Azalea, or I should say Ranger altogether, is it does seem a little more cost efficient. But on the flip side, the reason I think she's not leading the charge in terms of power level is that it can be very hard to get everything lined up, but when it does, it really sings, right? And I personally enjoy the challenge, kind of the thought process of getting in. That's why I really enjoy her. So let's go ahead and we'll start with really her big ones, there's some other no-brainers, but Red on the Ledger, this is a 1 for 5 cost, and if this hits, it's really bad for your opponent. So this is one of the cards that you're going to try to use with the Azalea Dominate ability. To these 1 for 5s, they tend to work. I mean, you're bigger. I mean, I don't think it's a like, it's a pretty obvious statement that your bigger hitters work better with Dominate, right? I mean, I think that makes sense. But trying to slip this through, because even if it hits only for one or two, making them, crippling them for their next turn is pretty impactful. Then you have Remorseless, of course, kind of another no-brainer, and it's basically, I mean, it's not the same effect, but it's in the same class as Red in the Ledger, in that the more they do the next turn, the more health they lose, and it just kind of drains on them. So they can kind of have similar effects, but again, it's this 1 for 5, and it kind of fits right in on that power curve. Now, these, of course, are both Majestics, harder to get, but very, very, very good cards that you want to try to set up for her ability. So, I mean, I think it goes without saying, both of those, obviously, like, those kind of are in a class of their own in terms of do you play them or not. The next card that I have is a no-brainer. So this is a super from Arc, is Endless Arrow. If this baby hits, it goes into your hand. Now, what I really love, I think this is probably Ranger's best card. I think the 0 for 4 is a big deal. And if it hits, it goes back in your hand. I mean, that doesn't suck. You can re-arsenal it. You can do whatever you need to with it. But this one, I think you're running max copies in deck of this one without a doubt, right? And I mean, I don't know anybody who wouldn't run this if they have it. So then we start getting into some of the, more decision making. So Hamstring Shot, for example, it's a 1 for 5 in this case. So there are plenty of other 1 for 5, so this doesn't get set apart. If it hits a hero, first attack during the next turn costs an additional resource to play. So it's a little hampering of them. This one's okay. I mean, again, it fits the 1 for 5, but it doesn't really. It costs you that resource to get out there. So this is one of those that I think you can go either way on. I've kind of moved away from playing Hamstring Shot myself in favor of the zeros. Okay, next is Headshot. So do note I'm showing all the one pitch, of course, right? So the question here would be, not only which ones are we playing, but what pitches are you playing? Do note that I tend to try and do the lowest cost curve possible with Azalea. But Headshot now, this one kind of busts the curve, but it kind of doesn't, right? So it's 1 for 4, which of course would be below curve. But if it's put in your arsenal face up, it gains +2 until end of turn. It's really not that hard to do that, right? Your bows do that. You have other stuff that does that. It's really not that hard to get this to be 6. So this one is definitely one that I play with, the threat of just getting it down. I do have to say, though, that remember we've got that 4 being a magic number. Well, guess what is a multiple of 3 is 6. So it going from 5 to 6 doesn't always necessarily make a huge difference, right? Where it starts to sing or whatever is if they're packing a bunch of equipment. But fundamentally, if let's say they were going to block it with 2 cards, they're still blocking it with 2 cards at 4 or 6. So this one looks really good on paper. I mean, swinging for 6 is no joke because, again, with her and her Dominate ability, you can make it work. So I'm not knocking this card at all. I just want to make sure that you're aware that that extra bonus, that extra curve on it, isn't necessarily a slam dunk. Right. So this card, I keep going back and forth on Pathing Helix. So originally I was like, oh man, when I first saw the Crucible cards, this is one of the 2 arrows, well, 3 if you count Remorseless, but one of the 2 basic arrows we got out of Crucible. You look at Pathing Helix and you're like, I mean, 0 for 4, that's pretty good. It doesn't cost me anything. I can throw it down. If it hits and you have no cards in Arsenal, you can put a card from your hand face down into your Arsenal, which could be another arrow. But it's very hard with Ranger to get the go again, unless you specifically are trying to go like a wide deck, and in which case I think you're not playing this anyways. So, I mean, maybe you are. The 0 for 4 on this, like I said, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, it's great. Then it kind of slid out of my deck, and then more recently it's actually found its way back in, just because I like to try and keep that 0 curve so I can try to get at least 1 or 2 multi-hit turns in per game. But this one's, I can go either way on this one, so I'm curious what other people think about this one. I mean, putting something in your arsenal is no joke with Ranger, but the reality is that Ranger really does actually have a lot of ways to reload, so sometimes you want to make sure you actually haven't gunked up your arsenal, because that does come up. Next is Ridge Rider Shot. I think this is not I think, this is definitely one of the, so it's 0 for 4 here, so that's fine, it's on curve right there. But if it goes in your arsenal face up, you get to opt one. It is massive, massive, massive. I'll throw up Azalea again to just highlight her dominate ability, right? Having the ability to opt and put what you want so that you can dominate with it is no joke, right? We know that you have Knock the Death Whistle, which is supposed to, I mean, that's kind of her signature move to try to set up for the big hit. This one can pseudo do that for you if you do have the cross wrap. I don't have a cross wrap, but if you do have a cross wrap, you can get the double. Right? You miss on your cross wrap, you throw this guy down, or vice versa. This one's great. This card actually is so good that in some of my builds I have played, like on my tall build, I have actually played in the past the 2-pitch version, the yellow pitch. I don't currently, but this card is really, really, really strong in Azalea. I think you're definitely playing this arrow. Next is Salvage Shot. Again, 1 for 5, and if it hits, go on the bottom of your deck. This one has kind of found its. Originally, I liked it because I was like, heck yeah, it helps me, but I haven't really found that often with Ranger that I'm going through my deck. So this one just it's not that this is a bad card at all. It's just that it kind of falls out of favor because there's other better stuff for this one. Searing Shot, I do like this one because it's kind of a 0 for 5-ish. It definitely puts the pressure on, and a lot of times it'll make them overblock, which, yes, it doesn't hit them and take health away, but if they're overblocking, then you're kind of accomplishing your goal as it is, right? And remember that 0 for 4 is no joke with Ranger, because it's multiple cards, so if they spin those multiple cards, that's kind of a win too. So Searing Shot is one, plus I've got a couple of them in foil, and like this is a really, really, really beautiful foil, so I'm kind of predisposed to putting that in the deck as it is. Alright, next is Sick'em Shot. So this is the one that breaks the curve from a raw stat standpoint, but obviously the fact that it has go, like, it's very clear why this one is 1 for 4 instead of 1 for 5 because of the go again. This is another card that early on I wasn't playing because I was finding it very hard to get the cards. But now that I've learned Ranger a little more, this has definitely gone back in my deck. And again, it's that obvious thing. You're like, well, if I'm going to play 1, I'd rather go for 5. But I'd also rather hit twice than I would once, right? So this one has found its way back in my deck. I could see it potentially falling back out depending on what comes in the future, but as of right now, this card is definitely back in my deck, and it's been doing some work for me. Right, next is Sleep Dart. So this is the last one. So if Sleep Dart hits a hero, they lose all card effects and activate abilities until the end of your next turn. So this one looked like it was one of the better Ranger cards out of Crucible. Definitely went in my deck first, or out of the gate, I mean. I haven't had as much success with this. I think maybe it's just the specific meta I'm in right now, but I look at a lot of the heroes, and like not all of the heroes use their ability on every turn, and it's not necessarily like even somebody who does. A lot of those heroes will have a setup turn and an attack turn or something like that, and this one's not as crippling as like a Remorseless, which will basically make them skip a turn. Right? I mean, in many cases, Remorseless or Red in the Ledger will actually make them just basically bust a turn. And Sleep Dart doesn't seem to have that same effect. So this one's been kind of falling out of favor for me. So having gone through all the various arrows, kind of the discussion move into now is really how many of them are you playing, right? I mean, like I said, some of them kind of just automatically go in because that's the whole point of what you're trying to do. But you don't want too many arrows because again you can't play them all. Plus Azalea requires a fair amount of the take aims, the take covers, and stuff like that with reload, and Poison the Tip is a really good one, right? You want stuff with reload to try and help her, of course, get them in the arsenal because you can't rely just on your bow because you're going to have a real slow game, right? So what's the right number? Keeping in mind that I also like to run Ravenous Rabbles, Scar for Scar, Plunder runs, and stuff like that to try help set up with my taller build. I'm currently on 8 of them. So that's not 8 cards, right? So that would be 24 or 16 depending on Constructed or Blitz. So it's not a huge amount of or it's not an overwhelming amount of your deck, right? But it is a significant amount of your attack actions, right? I think I'm only playing 2 or 3 other attack actions that aren't arrows. Again, I highly encourage the Ravenous Rabbles and the Scar for Scar just to try to soften stuff up before you do that big hit. So I've found that 8 to be the right number. Now, if you were going in a wide build, you'd want to run probably a couple more, and I think in a wide build, again, you're going to want to try and go more of the zeros, more of the 0-4s, and if you're in tall, you're going to go more of the 1-5s. So that's really what it boils down for me. So I've got, whoops, wrong way. So I've got 2 Pathing Helix, 2 Headshots, 2 Searing Shots. Oh man, look at the pretty foil on that. Yeah, baby. Ridge Rider, Endless Arrow, Remorseless, Red in the Ledger, and then it looks like I haven't swapped out yet. I have Salvage Shot, also foily on those, but Salvage Shot was actually getting swapped in on TTS. I've swapped that out for the Sikkim Shot, right? Because I was kind of referring to that's popped up in my later builds. So that's my thoughts on the arrows. Now, for my other Ranger players out there, what do you, not only what do you find for your right number, but are there any arrows that I'm just getting the wrong take on? Help me learn, help me figure this out, guys. So definitely in the comments below, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining me today. If nothing else, guys, go Commando.